From the corners of Kingston to the skyscrapers of Queens, from the sands of Senegal to the screens in New Orleans, you're tuned into Urban Pulse Global, where the city speaks loudest and the headlines dance with truth. I'm your host, DJ Kelly. Here to unwrap today's news with rhythm, talk, and receipts. We don't just scroll past the chaos, we vibe through it. Yes, one story at a time. Let's plug into the pulse, shall we? Urban, global, real. So let's get into it. Okay, welcome to this morning's news segment, news program. And we cover the New York Times, today's paper, and then we go over to CARICOM.com to find out what's going on in the Caribbean, and then we go to AfricaNews.org to learn what's happening in Africa. AfricaNews.com. That's what we're here to do today, and I just want to welcome you. Welcome. I hope that all is well in your neighborhood. And if it all isn't well, that it's being taken care of, it's being handled, and you're handling it like a boss, like the boss that you are. Yeah, because we conquer. We're not conquered. That's right. That is right. So let us begin. All right, we begin with the New York Times, today's paper, and let's see what's going on there. Okay, so the first, and of course, like I said before, it's Friday, June 2025. And this issue of the paper is number 60,556. Wow. Awesome. Now let's see what's going on. As you can see on the paper, there's this building. Let's see where this building is at. All right, a damaged building Thursday in Ramat Gan, Israel, where officials said over 30 people were hurt. So that's the main picture that you see on the paper. Yes. Okay, so jihadists pose growing peril in West Africa. Millions are displaced as terrorists gain. And this story is written by Elian Peltier. Okay, please forgive me if I mispronounce your name. I'm Jamaican. All right. All right. So at a market in Togo, a small town in northern Ivory Coast, the smell of dried fish and fried dough filled the air. Children ran around the bustling stalls where women sold the corn and the cassava they had carried on their heads for miles. In the countryside, Muslim elders watched the crowds on the sandy main street while Christian worshippers poured out of church after Sunday Mass. Yet the bustle bellied an insidious threat. About half of terrorism deaths worldwide in 2023 were recorded in the Sahel, the arid region in West Africa, known for its semi-nomadic tribes and ancient trade routes, emboldened by their success in the landlocked nations of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Insurgents affiliated with Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State are moving south toward the Atlantic and into coastal nations such as Ivory Coast. All right, so that's just a bit about one of the news that's on the front line of today's paper, New York Times, and this story continues on page A6. Let's see what else is on the front page. So it says here, muted response from Democrats on trans ruling. A party is in retreat. Concerned liberals' words don't reflect average voters' views. And this story is by Kelleen Browning. Leading Democrats offered a slow trickle of critical reaction on Wednesday to the Supreme Court's decision upholding a state ban on some transgender care for youth, underscoring the new discomfort on the issue from a party that has long seen itself as a champion of LGBTQ Americans. Hours after the ruling arrived, some top Democrats, like Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, the minority leader, had denounced the decision as part of a cruel crusade against trans Americans. But many others, including key players in the 2028 shadow primary race, had yet to weigh in. Governor Gavin Newsom of California was posting on social media about the National Guard. Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania had thoughts about housing. Governor Wes Moore of Maryland shared a celebration of pride, but said nothing about the major new court ruling. Asked for comment, representatives for all three governors said they were not issuing any statements on the decision for now. All right, then. And that story continues on page A15. Let's see what else is going on the front page of the New York Times today. The next story, Iranians strike Israeli hospital as U.S. buys time. Trump delays action, it reads. With eyes on diplomacy, he looks to decide within 2 weeks. This article is by Adam Rasgon, Nathan Odenheimer, Tyler Pager, and Michael Levinson. Out of Jerusalem, an Iranian missile struck a large hospital in southern Israel on Thursday, causing widespread damage and injuring several patients, as President Trump said he would decide within the next 2 weeks whether to join Israel's bombing campaign against Iran to stop its nuclear program. And here's a quote, and this quote is from Mr. Trump. Okay, based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks, Mr. Trump said in a statement read aloud by the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, in a news conference. The apparent pivot from Mr. Trump bought the American president time and space for further diplomacy to confront the war that has been raging since last Friday, when Israel launched waves of strikes on Iran, including the capital, Tehran. Iran soon retaliated with missile and drone attacks on major Israeli cities, including Tel Aviv. Now, that story continues on page A10. Now, let's see what else is on the front page. And the next story is new lessons at restored school that taught enslaved children. All right. And this story is by Audra D.S. Birch out of Williamsburg. The building with a forgotten past sat on the campus of William and Mary for nearly a century. It served as the home of the military science department at the College of Williamsburg, and I think VA is Virginia. Let us be sure. Williamsburg. Right. A city in Virginia, right? Because it says VA. I just want to be sure. All right. So, yes. So it served as the home of the military science department at the college in Williamsburg, Virginia, and before that, a woman's dormitory. But its story is even older. In 2020, researchers discovered that it was not just a facet of the historic campus, but a rare artifact in the history of Black life in colonial America. About 250 years ago, the unassuming structure housed the Williamsburg Brave School, making it the oldest known building where enslaved and free black children were formally educated. Since the discovery, the Bray School has been fully restored. It opened to the public on Thursday, Juneteenth, that was yesterday, in colonial Williamsburg, where it was relocated in 2023 to be preserved. So Juneteenth is June 19th. All right, the space gives visitors a sense of the lives of the students, and the museum will scrutinize through interpreters the mission of the school, which not only taught the children church doctrine and reading, but sought to convince enslaved students to accept their circumstances as divinely ordained. And that's a quote, by the way. Convince enslaved students to accept their circumstances as divinely ordained, according to the museum's website. This story, and there's a photograph right here. The story continues on page 820, and there's a photo of a lady right here. For those of you who cannot see, there's a lot of lush green around her, and then there is the white picket fence behind her, and then a little bit of building peeking through the bushes, through the greenery, and then there she is. She is Janice Kennedy, a community engagement manager at Colonial Williamsburg in Virginia. Janice Kennedy, Janice Kennedy, a community engagement manager at Colonial Williamsburg in Virginia, traces her family to the Bray School. So let's see what else is on the front page. Oh yes, he came to put up a flagpole and got a Trump talk on Iran. That's the next story by Sean McCreish. Washington. When an arborist named Christopher Tattersall walked out of his house in Glen Arm before sunrise on Wednesday, he had no idea he would soon be thrust into the most high-stakes moment of Donald Trump's second presidency, as the world waited to find out whether Mr. Trump was finally going to go through with bombing Iran's nuclear facilities. The president engaged that morning and chose to give his fullest remarks on the subject, yet while standing with a crew of workers who had been contracted to do a job on the White House grounds. Mr. Tattersall was there in his bright orange shirt and his climbing harness hovering just over the president's left shoulder, shocked to find himself cast as an unwitting extra on the geopolitical stage. And there is a photo of the three men, well, kind of the back of Mr. Trump, and then the two men who were there to do the job. So, and that story continues on page A17. What else is happening? Let's see. In business, we have Fed's awkward position. The central bank's anticipation of an economic shift conflicts with the president's demands for lower rates. That story is on B1. Long road to eliminating coal. Many factories need high heat, but producing heat without generating greenhouse gases isn't easy. Page B1. In the international headlines, we have Pakistan's drone campaign as the country strikes militants domestically. Its security services are adopting a tactic that Pakistan once criticized the United States for using, and that story continues on page A5. China hacking Russia, an ally. Since the war in Ukraine began, analysts have monitored a series of intrusions aimed at stealing information on weaponry and war fighting. That story is on page A8. Trying to satisfy Trump, a NATO plan to increase members' military spending at the level President Trump wants is becoming clearer, as are its shortcomings. That story is on page A9. And in national news, On-the-job training in Texas, Sarah Stogner had never tried a criminal case before, getting elected DA in an oil-rich area half the size of New Jersey. So far, it's been a struggle. That story is on page A14. A network of shield migrants, activists, faith leaders, lawyers, and everyday New Yorkers are converging at the city's court to escort immigrants past masked federal officers. And that story, you can find it on page A18. Screens and mental health. A study found that children with highly addictive technology habits were more likely to have thoughts of suicide or to harm themselves. That story is on page A21. Now, Weekend Arts, they've got your number. With 28 years later, Danny Boyle revives some of the creatures seen in his 2002 film, 28 Days Later, and that story can be found on page CI. A spooky sleepover. The Shed is hosting Viola's Room, a reconceived gothic mystery from a company called Punch Drunk, and that story you can find it on page C1. And that is all the news that's happening on the new that is currently on the front page of the New York Times. All the news that's fit to print. Oh yeah, and I forgot the weather. The weather today. Today will be mostly sunny, breezy, less humid, high 85, and tonight clear, light wind, low 71, and tomorrow sun and clouds, very warm, not too humid, high 88. Weather map can be found on page B12. Amazing. So now we are going to be going over to CARICOM to find out what's going on in the Caribbean. Stay with me. All right. Thank you so much for staying with us so far. Thank you for staying with us so far. Now we're going to be taking a look at what's happening in the Caribbean. Awesome. And this is a credit to CARICOM.org. And here's what's happening in the news. Okay, so first on the headline and this was published on June 19, 2025, July meeting of CARICOM heads of government to focus on security, food systems, climate change, geopoliticals. The upcoming, one moment there. Let's expand this bit so we can see more clearly. There we go. All right. So the upcoming 49th meeting of the CARICOM heads of government will take place. Oh, let's start that again. Let's not insert any words. So July meeting of CARICOM heads of government to focus on security, food systems, climate change, and geopolitics. CARICOM SG. CARICOM Secretary General. Okay, so the upcoming 49th meeting of the CARICOM heads of government will place emphasis on improving regional security, enhancing food and nutrition security, and combating climate change. CARICOM Secretary General Dr. Carla Barnett said the meeting convenes 6th to 8th July in Montego Bay, Jamaica, with the Most Honorable Andrew Holness as the chair. As the chair, yes. So that's what's in the headlines for that, and you can read more. You can hit the read more button when you get here to continue with that story. Now, the next headline: Jamaica's chairmanship of CARICOM to focus on youth as architects of the future. Jamaica's six-month chairmanship of the Caribbean Community CARICOM, which begins on the 1st of July 2025, will place emphasis on youth as the architects of the future. Prime Minister Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness has announced. All right, in a special message ahead of the 49th meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM. Okay, great. So you can read more of that story as well there. Another headline reads, and that story I just read was also on June 19, and the next story is from June 16. The community will prioritize innovative digital solutions. Prime Minister Holness again, that's PM Andrew Holness, in a world increasingly defined by rapid technological change. CARICOM must embrace the transformative potential of digital technologies, including artificial intelligence, to drive economic growth, enhance public safety, and improve the quality of life of its people. And you can continue reading that story as well. And our next headline also is from June 16, CCCCC. So that's 5 C's. And I'll soon tell you what it is. So CCCCC, to celebrate 20 years of regional climate leadership and anniversary banquet awards ceremony. So the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, institution mandated to coordinate the Caribbean's response to climate change, is proud to announce the celebration of its 20th anniversary. This milestone marks 2 decades of steadfast leadership, scientific innovation, meaningful collaboration, and measurable progress in advancing climate resilience across the Caribbean. And you can read the full story as well there. Now, another headline from June 16, media accreditation. The 49th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM, July 6 to 8, 2025 in Montego Bay. I'm sorry, let me read it as it is. Media accreditation, 49th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM, 6 to 8th July 2025, Montego Bay, Jamaica. 6 to 8th July 2025, Montego Bay, Jamaica. Jamaica will host the 49th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, from 6 to 8 July in Montego Bay, under the chairmanship of Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica. And in June 13, which was this also this week, or this was last week now, and we'll only go through this one for last week because we're not going too far back. So July 13, which is our last headline for CARICOM, for the Caribbean. No ocean declaration without small islands. Delegates push for inclusion as UN summit nears end. H.E. Sophia Soni, Special Envoy and Ambassador for Climate of Grenada, told UN News that she is pleased to see the reference in the draft outcome of the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for Small Island Developing States, or ABAS, ABAS, which was adopted during the 4th International Conference on Small Island Developing States in May 2024. You can catch up on all these headlines at CARICOM.org. And that is today's headlines for the Caribbean. Stay with me. right. It's now time for us to go over to Africa to see what's going on in our neighborhood there. All right. So just in on June 20, that would be today. Come on, this is really, really small. So let's go a little bigger so we can see it properly. All right. Oh, okay. All right, here we go. So these are the headlines for Africa, and our source is africannews.com. All right, so just in a decade on, Lesbos still bears the scars of the refugee crisis. Super strong bikes help transform healthcare in rural Uganda. Fear of Iranian missiles forces hundreds to sleep in Tel Aviv train stations. Cameroon's civil society calls on voters to sanction, is it Baya or Bia, in upcoming elections? Baya in upcoming elections. Dance for Refugees challenges Instagram users to share their moves for a cause. Russia warns U.S. against military intervention in Israel-Iran tensions. Kenya, and this is from June 19, Kenya court sentences two to jail terms for aiding 2019 hotel attack. Juneteenth celebrations marking the end of slavery in United States. Real Madrid's Mbappe hospitalized with acute gastroenteritis at start of Club World Cup tournament. United Nations harnesses power of music for peace in South Sudan. Morocco to reassess Turkey trade deal amid swelling deficit. South Africa declares a state of disaster following severe weather. Angola hosts U.S.-Africa summit amid calls to revive trade ties. Business Africa. Let's see what else is going on in the headlines. Ooh. Hang on. There we go. Let's see what else is going on. Right here it has Russia warns U.S. against military intervention in Israel-Iran tension. We already shared that. And in Greece, a decade on, Lesbos still bears the scars of the refugee crisis. It's all there. Super strong bikes help transform healthcare in rural Uganda. Cameroon's civil society calls on voters to sanction. And then, of course, right here you can see the Dance for Refugees challenges Instagram users to share. We shared those things. So in the editor's choice, we have U.S. resumes visas for foreign students but demands access. Right here, and then we have evacuations begin. African citizens caught in Israel-Iran and the conflict, the Israel-Iran conflict. Ghanaian nurse Naomi Oti wins 2025 Global Awards. That's from Ghana. And visa denied. African travelers hit hard by soaring Shenyang. Yeah, that's what the headline says, and we're only doing the headline. So let's keep going. Okay, and they have here, of course, a photo, Juneteenth representing the Juneteenth celebrations marking the end of slavery in America. The day is being marked amid President Donald Trump's ban on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in the federal government. So you can see that photo there of this man holding. Let's see if this is an audio, if it would play. No, it wouldn't. So it's just an image. All right. Oh, there's a video. I want to play this so we can hear it. All right.
Going to Walden University really helped me a lot. My way to my career was unconventional. I was a
People look
across the United States marked Juneteenth on Thursday.
And we use this with fair use, of course.
When enslaved black people in Texas were told of their emancipation 2 years earlier. In Black Heritage Trail, New Hampshire, a week of events culminated with the rededication of an 18th century gravesite for freed and enslaved Africans.
So the African burying ground was built over, covered on, erased from memory. And it's so important that this time we're gathered here during Juneteenth 2025, which is a commemoration 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was made by our then President Lincoln that freed the enslaved African and African Americans.
Juneteenth has been a federal holiday since 2021, but New Hampshire, one of the country's whitest states, is not among those that have made it a legal holiday.
I imagine the emotions they felt when they heard that document had been signed and that they were free. I imagine among the things they would have felt when they found out that they heard about it 2 years late. Maybe there was some joy. There might have been some anger. I would have been a little ticked off, I think, to have known if I had been free for 2 years and nobody bothered to tell me. Oh, freedom.
This year's Juneteenth celebrations come amid President Donald Trump's ban on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives.
Special thanks to AfricanNews.com for that. And that's pretty much what's going on in the headlines for Africa today. Oh, wow. Thank you so much for staying with me. And that brings us to the end of the program for today. So I just want to say thank you for staying with us. Thank you for vibing. And it is my hope that you've been fully informed and you have an awareness of what's happening in our global or urban communities. So from New York to the Caribbean to Africa, we bring you the headlines. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Goodbye.